Summoning the spirit of ancient Greece, a woman lights a flame using a mirror reflecting the sun's rays. There was plenty of historical pageantry on display as the Olympic torch began a tour of 135 cities in 20 countries last March. But this is the year of China's global coming out party, and the future, not the past, is the philosophy behind the 2008 Beijing Games. A new self-confident China is stepping onto the world stage.
They get to tell a story about how China has modernised itself, how it's become a global superpower, and how it's managed to pull off one of the greatest shows on earth ahead of time.
Olympic President Jacques Rogge called the torch a messenger of world peace.
That the symbol of the torch will be recognised by everybody.
But as it travelled around the globe, the torch proved a beacon to protesters demonstrating against China's record on suppressing religious freedom, free speech and rights for the people of Tibet.
The main things that Amnesty International has been focusing on include the death penalty, include the treatment of human rights defenders, includes media freedom, and also issues of justice, of fair trials, of due process of law.
Since 2001, when the IOC awarded these games to Beijing, it's been clear they were going to be the most politically sensitive since the US led a boycott of the Moscow Olympics in 1980. Media attention in the West focused on what some saw as heavy-handed tactics by the Chinese army guards who surrounded the flame. It wasn't the kind of attention China was looking for.
I think China was completely thrown by the global reaction to the torch ceremonies, and what was meant to be a huge celebration of the new China turned into a PR catastrophe.
And China wasn't alone in its discomfort. Corporate sponsors too had to take stock.
Some of the sponsors were taken back by the protests that the torch relay received, and so they maybe got to kind of re-evaluate the risks of kind of working with China.
Other issues raised abroad included the poor air quality in Beijing and whether athletes should even be competing in such a polluted city, despite all the efforts to clean up ahead of August.
China's determined that everything works perfectly for the Olympics, so they're shutting factories down months beforehand in order to improve the air conditions during the Games. They're going to clear all of the public spaces. They're even going to get people to take their washing down off balconies.
When the torch arrived in mainland China, it was greeted throughout the regions by a cheering public.
The Olympic Games is going to have a big domestic impact as well, that they are incredibly popular in China, and so it is a way for the Chinese government, which isn't democratically elected, so it doesn't have much legitimacy, to gain support among the wider Chinese population.
When China was struck by a massive earthquake in Sichuan earlier this year, killing thousands and leaving millions homeless, foreign observers noted a new attitude to journalists covering the tragedy.
We saw initially, after the earthquake, a fabulous opening up on the part of the Chinese authorities to not just foreign media, but to the Chinese media as well.
I think the Chinese authorities very quickly understood the PR potential of the earthquake. They saw what a disaster the torch relay was for the Chinese image abroad.
While the torch relay protests may have distracted attention from what China really wants to show off, its past 30 years of economic achievements, businesses preparing for the 2012 Olympics in London have seen how their Chinese counterparts have gained from the experience of organising this Games.
Some of the learning they've had through the construction sector on some very challenging and ambitious architectural projects for the Games, that's really leapfrogged them forward in terms of their ability to compete at a higher level in some global markets.
The road to Beijing has given the world a crash course in China this year, but the country's leaders have had some lessons of their own to learn along the way.
As it becomes overwhelmed by with an onslaught of thousands and thousands of journalists, they'll write whatever stories they want to write, and that will make it very difficult for China to actually keep control of how it's portrayed in the world.
As the eyes of the world turn to the east this August and 4 billion TV spectators tune into the Beijing Games, there's a lot more than gold medals at stake in the Chinese capital.